This place is good, not because it has a castle, but in spite of it.
Welcome to Baggage Claim, an unofficial Jet Lag the Game companion podcast. Today, we're unpacking episode 4 of season 16, Hide and Seek UK. I'm Casey.
I'm Kyra.
And I'm Jaya.
Kyra, what's the worst egg you've ever eaten?
I don't know if I'm just thinking about it because of the episode, but I hate to admit, I think the worst egg I've ever eaten is a grocery store Scotch egg.
Ooh.
It's pretty brutal. I've made that mistake as well.
Nothing from the grocery store that's sold prepackaged should also have been deep fried. It's just going to be a soggy mess.
I do think I sort of made it worse on myself, which is that last year when I first moved to the UK, I went to the grocery store and I thought, I've heard a lot of people talk about Scotch eggs. This is really my chance. And I bought the smallest number of Scotch eggs, which is 2 in a pack. And I was kind of excited. I was like, ooh, this will be a nice after-work treat. And I tried one bite of one Scotch egg and immediately thought, oh, okay, not for me. I do not like it. It's just cold, wet, fried sausage, which just isn't really my thing.
I just don't understand why they sell them at the grocery store.
I did make it worse on myself because now I had one whole Scotch egg and one Scotch egg with a bite taken out of it, and I thought this is the worst situation to be in because I don't want to contribute to food waste, and it technically is food, but if I put it back in the fridge, I'm going to open my fridge door and be so bummed out to see it. I guess I have to eat both of them right now
Kyra.
So that I don't have to think about it anymore and I can just get it over with.
Jaya, what about you?
I honestly don't think I have a specific worst egg. I'm just generally not a fan of a plain egg. I like eggs in things. I like eggs on things. Every now and then I'll actually want to have a scrambled egg, or I'll go through a steamed egg era for breakfasts. But I'm just gonna say that the worst egg I've ever eaten is any really hard-boiled egg. I just don't like a hard-boiled yolk. Texturally, taste-wise, everything about it, not good in my mouth.
That's really fair. So when I came up with this question, I actually had a different story in mind, but now I feel like it's my duty to share my grocery store Scotch egg story, which is that the first time I went back to Glasgow since I moved away was for my former roommate's wedding. And she was so kind, and she let me stay at her apartment the night before her wedding, because she was going to be staying at a hotel anyway. But so, I got to stay in my old home, which was really sweet. And I went to my local Aldi for dinner that night. And
you chose an Aldi Scotch egg in a fridge?
Hold on, Jaya. First, you have to understand that I was unbearably sentimental about being there. I was taking selfies with the Glasgow trash cans because I missed them so much. But so then I went into Aldi and I was like, oh my gosh, I used to go here all the time. I used to buy my oatmeal here. And I was just so emotional and sentimental. And I was walking through the aisles and I was like, what am I going to have for dinner? And then I saw the carton of Scotch eggs and I was like, well, I certainly can't get these in the US. So maybe I should buy those for the sentimentality of it. And then I also saw, a traditional Scottish, side dish is called neeps and tatties, which is turnips and potatoes. And
okay,
and so
I guess
I saw the Aldi, neeps and tatties, microwave meal, and I was like, oh, I should buy the neeps and tatties. And then I but there was a beautiful cereal that this makes me sound insane, and I was.
Are you going to talk about multigrain dino shapes?
Oh, they had a beautiful cereal called multigrain shapes that I loved so much, so that I purchased a box of multigrain shapes, and then I walked back to my apartment, and then I remembered that I did not like Scotch eggs.
No.
And
wait, so you'd had them before and you knew you didn't like them when you got them?
I had definitely, I think, done something similar to Kyra, where I was like, oh, I want to try a Scotch egg, and look, there's one in this grocery store.
Okay.
So then I was eating my dinner after traveling and being so jet-lagged, and just eating a cold Scotch egg and microwaved turnips and potatoes. I don't even like turnips. Yeah.
Casey, you were possessed in that Aldi.
Let's jump into the recap. This was a rough round for Ben. He starts off the episode with confidence, saying that this will be his winning run due to his careful selection of a hiding zone. The Seekers ask Ben whether he's in the same country as them, and when they sadly confirm Ben is still in England, they make a lucky guess on his direction and head north towards Rugby with a 10-mile thermometer. Adam sneezes, Sam enjoys the beauty of leaving Milton Keynes, and Ben draws a time trap. After the thermometer is warmer, the Seekers decide to continue on north towards Birmingham, but are able to eliminate much of the remaining map with a miss on a 100-mile radar from Rugby. This makes Ben want to draw the Seekers towards the opposite side of the country as his hiding location, so he places his time trap in Leeds. The Seekers do waffle back and forth over whether Ben is trying to trick them or not, but they decide to keep chopping the map in half by walking a half-mile thermometer along the beautiful canals. The Seekers' thermometer proves to them that Ben was trying to trick them with his time trap, so they decide to full send to Manchester. Meanwhile, Ben draws the Curse of the Gilded Inquiry and chooses the custom radar for his extra card draws. Sam's vibe-based seeking leads the Seekers to ask for a photo of the largest body of water, since he has a hunch Ben might be in the Lake District. However, the photo Ben sends shows evidence of a current, making the Seekers decide to look for stations along a river. When Ben sends the requested photo of the tallest building from the train station, Sam and Adam jump into action because Ben's photo shows pouring rain, which they can cross-reference with the weather map for storm patterns. After looking at a few different stations in the center of the rain map, Adam clicks on Kendall and finds that his map app pops up with a photo of the Kendall Museum, which exactly matches the photo of the tallest building that Ben sent. Meanwhile, in classic jet-lag edit fashion, Ben decides to check out the Kendall Museum, creating a series of reaction memes with the bad taxidermy contained inside. Ben starts to worry because the Seekers are continuing to travel north without asking more questions. But little does he know, the Seekers have not only identified Ben's hiding zone already, but have also made a stop in the snack zone. For some reason, Sam has decided to subject Adam to a grocery store Scotch egg. The Seekers miss their train connection, so they end up taking a bus to Kendall. They even sit on the top of the double-decker bus with the beautiful big window, which is such a delight of UK buses. They beeline it to Kendall, leaving Ben without enough time for an ideal hiding spot. With even more bad luck, Ben rolls a 3 and can't use his Curse of the Impenetrable Fog. Ben is within their half-mile radar, but he also vetoes their request for a trace of the nearest street. Still, the Seekers decide to wander around to see if they can find Ben on their own. Using the tallest structure photo for a vibe check, they walk right up to Ben, ending his run with time bonuses at 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 42 seconds, which is even shorter than his first round. It's a bummer for Ben, but Sam gets another chance to beat Adam's time. And, in excellent news, amazing news even, Sam is not heading to an evil place like Milton Keynes. He instead finally ventures out of England to what he calls the greatest country in the world, and I feel I must concur. Falcha Gualaba, welcome to Scotland. To conclude our recap, I've come up with a title to highlight the most important moment of the episode, which to me was definitely the moment that Adam and Sam used the rain in Ben's photo to pinpoint his location. So I propose the title, Downpour, Downfall.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any alternate titles?
I have a title suggestion that comes from a little musical called Les Mis. My suggestion is A Little Fall of Rain Can Hardly Hurt Me Now. Kind of ironic because it really did hurt Ben.
Also ironic because isn't that song when Eponine dies at the barricade of the
Yeah, I would
illusion?
argue a little fall of rain
Yes,
can
it is.
always hurt you.
Well, now I will move us into the Strat Chat, our segment where we break down the strategy and gameplay of the episode. For today's Strat Chat, I wanted to unpack photo questions. In this season alone, we've seen 2 rounds, Sam's first and Ben's second, skip over the middle game almost completely after the Seekers identified the hider's location based on a photo question. In Sam's case, his mistake not to blur a sign helped the Seekers search for every Santander bank along the lines they'd narrowed down to. And in this episode, the Seekers used the information of rain and tallest building to accurately pinpoint Ben's station. I want to say before we start our discussion that I am not against the Seekers using the information from photo questions in this way. I feel like sometimes we forget that they are literally finding someone hiding in an entire country in a matter of hours, and that would be impossible without using information from these photo questions. But I do want to ask you both, what is the best strategy for the hider to tackle photo questions? Are there strategies that allow for an above-board answer to the Seeker's photo requests that still obscure the hiding location? How can hiders be sneaky with their photos? And could Ben have done anything differently with his photos in this episode to lengthen his round?
I really like this topic for a Strat Chat because I do think the photo questions are sometimes a little bit underestimated, where, like, they're only worth 1 card pull, they take 20 minutes, they're often very vibes-based information, but what we're seeing in this game is that once you have a good sense of the vibes in whatever your hiding area is, like whatever the country is or the city is that you're playing hide-and-seek in, you can learn a lot from these photos.
I think it is easy in retrospect to think through the things you could do differently. So, like, in this case, the 2 major, I hate to call them blunders because I don't think he did anything wrong in the moment, but the 2 major places where Ben could have retroactively fixed his mistake would have been either looking up Kendall on the map and seeing what pops up, which I just think it's sort of beyond the scope of the hider to have to think about that in advance. But now that we see that that's a strategy, it's something that the hider could be thinking about moving forward. And then the second thing that he could have done was to veto a photo question rather than trying to save it, especially now that we're seeing that photo questions are being used to narrow down directly from the long game into the end game. It's possible that a strategy moving forward could just be starting to veto photo questions sort of willy-nilly in the hopes that the question that they veto would have been the one to lead them directly to their location. But I do think that photo questions are pretty innocuous, and so I certainly don't blame Ben for not vetoing tallest building. And I, in fact, think that if he had vetoed tallest building, we could have been having a Strat Chat saying, well, did he waste his veto? It was just a photo question.
I will say I've consulted the home game rulebook, and the tallest building visible from the transit station does now specify that you must stand directly outside a station entrance. But if there are multiple entrances, you may choose which entrance you take the building from, and you must include the roof and both sides of the building, with the top of the building in the top 1/3 of the frame. And so I really think Ben was kind of stuck here because he's stuck taking a photo of that building from pretty far away.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't anything, like, weird that he could have done with the perspective from outside the train station to make it look different or make it look narrower or make the window, like, crop out the windows or anything. I think that question just kind of cooked him. Maybe the only method I can think of for Ben avoiding what ended up happening would have been if he had had a different station entrance and there was some other tallest building. But the Kendall Museum, like, it looks like a kind of generic building. Its windows don't look particularly distinct, and so it really is just lucky that there's exactly a photo of it, because from Ben's perspective, if he didn't know that it was the Kendall Museum, it looks kind of like any other building, so I don't think he would have even realized that it was going to give him away.
Well, and I think that that relates to what I see as the 2 main use cases for the Seekers with photo questions. And one of them, I think we have seen less in this season than others. But we did see, for example, I think in Ben's first run, which is using that photo question to verify once you get to the station that you are, in fact, in the hiding zone. So I think with Ben's first run, they had now I can't remember if it was 1 building or 5 buildings question, but they were able to get off the train. They thought that they were in the right spot, but then they looked at the photo and they said, yep, that's exactly, we're at the right station. This is correct. Versus, I think here in this episode, what we saw was using those photo questions to get a vibe for the place, to be looking at the mapping app's satellite view and looking at the kinds of buildings. Are there large buildings around this station, small buildings? Is it raining? Does the sun look like it's coming from a certain way? And that, I think, is where that spillover information can really help the seekers if they spot it, but is maybe not exactly what the photo questions were originally intended to be used for. And so I think it's interesting that maybe the hiders are still playing with that first understanding of photo questions of being useful to verify the location versus the seekers are really being a bit more aggressive and proactive in trying to use those photos way before they've narrowed down the hiding location.
I wonder if another way the hider can try to preempt some of the photo questions is just by not prioritizing the middle game quite as much. Like, I know we've talked a little bit about how different players prioritize different parts of their runs, where we've seen Ben historically has really prioritized having a strong end game, whereas Adam historically has not really prioritized his end game. And I wonder if what we're going to start seeing is, as all 3 players get more and more expert in hide and seek, and they know each other really well, and they know how each other plays, I wonder if a strategy is going to be to try to lengthen out the long game. So if you're able to get people wondering, which of these main lines did I take? Then I wonder if that's going to be a bigger question, a harder question to answer. But then once the seekers pick, okay, we want to go to this major hub next, once they enter the middle game, I wonder if the hider just shouldn't bank that much on the middle game and should pick their hiding location based on having a hard long game and a hard end game. So for instance, I wonder if it would have been strategic for Ben to go through London, because if the seekers had to go through London, it's just hard to pick a direction to go in. Whereas not going through London, the seekers pretty much know what direction to go. They already have a relatively limited map. They had a quarter of the country left, which is still a pretty big portion of the country, but there weren't a ton of directions where he could have gone from there. It was sort of, 2 branching points that they even cut in half. And so it might just be that as all 3 players get better and better at the game, the middle game might just start to disappear.
I think that actually transitions us well into our next segment. So, Jaya, passing things over to you.
Thanks, Casey. In this episode, we begin game day 4 out of 6, thus marking the halfway point in this game of hide and seek. So welcome back to Cruising Altitude, a segment where we take a look at the season so far and identify some overarching strategies. So we're going to go through the seekers, then the hiders, and then hide and seek in general and how it's changed. So first, what do you both see as each duo's strategy as seekers? And sort of in that, what are each duo's strengths and weaknesses? I kind of wanted to start thinking about Adam and Sam first, because I think they really stand out to me as a very analytical pair. My thought about Adam and Sam is that they're extremely methodical, and they don't seem to be afraid of curses. Like, they really bombard Ben with questions at all times. And sometimes it really works out where they pinpoint him early on not too many questions. And sometimes they end up giving Ben like a stupid amount of time bonuses, like we saw in Hide and Seek Japan. But they just want to get questions. They want to narrow in on his area fast.
That's a really interesting perspective, because I do think that I partially agree. I think that in both pairs, Adam and Sam and Ben and Adam, I think we see Adam's desire to be chopping the map, asking a lot of questions. I do think that in this episode, we do see in the end game, Sam is a little bit more anxious about getting cursed. He doesn't want Curse of the Gambler's Feet. He doesn't want any of those curses in the end game. And I think he is also the player who is most willing to go out on a hunch in those more vibe-based photo questions, Strava map, etc. I think that the similarities in those strategies that I see with Adam and Sam is they are much more willing to go after a hunch. I think that they both are making predictions about where they think Ben will be. Sometimes that has absolutely bitten them in the butt, like in Japan when they go exactly the wrong way. But I think that they really both in different ways, whether through asking more questions or by doing more analysis of the more vibes-based questions, they're more proactive in making a prediction and then going after that somewhat aggressively when seeking.
Speaking of going after a hunch, I sort of also see that with Ben and Sam as a pair. When both of them are paired with Adam, Adam's the analytical one, and so the two of them together, they're going a lot more on vibes than I think I would feel comfortable with as a seeker. They're going to get a photo and say, this looks like this area, or I think he's in this area, so let's start going up this way and see what happens.
I think what's interesting with Ben and Sam, and I'm aware that we've only seen that combination once in this season so far, and it was in the first round in a new country, so I'm not sure how much that was playing a role, but it did seem like, unlike the other rounds, Ben and Sam, yes, they were going off of vibes. I think that they maybe see Adam as the most predictable in his hiding locations. They kind of know, oh, he's going to want to prioritize a pretty place. We already know the stereotype with castles, things like that. But I think that in the first episode, we see that they are kind of going off of vibes. They have predictions, but they're also more willing to spend a little extra time to eliminate something that they think is not correct. Whereas I think Adam and Sam, we see they want to confirm that their hunch is correct. Ben and Sam are eliminating a hunch that they think is incorrect. Like they go into the next county over to eliminate it, even though they're pretty sure he's not there. Which I think is really an interesting approach.
That's so insightful.
Yeah, they're trying to avoid a big mistake.
Ben and Sam are afraid of a huge blunder, but in doing that, they lose a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do agree with that. And I think what you've been saying, Jaya, about how Adam is sort of the analytical one of the three, I think the way that's coming through is that Adam seems to be the most geography-based seeker of the three of them. He seems to be the player that's prioritizing physically scribbling out places on the map the most.
Like, he's the map guy.
Right. He seems to care the most about getting 50-50 splits, whereas Ben and Sam definitely seem to be the most willing to go based on vibes, like you both have been saying. And I know, like, small sample size and also biased perspective, so this might not mean anything, but I wonder if that's part of the reason why we've seen that Ben's runs have been relatively unsuccessful this season. I mean, there are probably a variety of factors and also random chance and luck and whatever. But we are seeing that Adam and Sam are having this cool synergy in this season where Adam is really focused on chopping the map and Sam is really confident in his ability to get a vibe off of photos and just hunches. And we've seen in previous seasons that sort of created a tension where they're sort of not able to make strong decisions, or they're constantly going back and forth, or they're sort of, lightly arguing about what to do next. But in this season, they are agreeing with each other and they're building off of each other's hunches, which means that they're able to use their very different strategies to great effect. Whereas it seems like Ben and Sam are often agreeing on their hunches, and often their hunches are right. So in the layover episode for episode 4, all three of them were talking about how it's interesting that pretty much every time there's been a 50-50 guess this season, the seekers have been correct, which is like a crazy statistic, but it means that they have really good instincts. So I don't think that Ben and Sam are wrong to go with their instincts. It just means that they might have to eliminate negative possibilities as well as proving positive possibilities because they're not preemptively cutting the map quite as much. They're just going on a hunch that will ultimately end up being right.
And then, what do you guys see as each hider's instincts, both in how to curse the Seekers, but also in just how to pick a hiding zone in the first place? And when do they fight against it? Like, I think the most classic example is that Adam's instinct is to go somewhere picturesque. And sometimes he's gonna fight that because he's like, listen, this place is good, not because it has a castle, but in spite of it, or like, whatever, something like that. But also, like, for example, I feel like Sam really just loves being subversive to whatever either somebody's been telling him to do, like in this game where Adam was saying, go somewhere cool, and he said, I'm gonna go somewhere supremely uncool. Or being subversive to, like, the dominant strategies, where in Japan they were going pretty far out of cities usually, and he was like, what if I went to the airport? Yeah, so in general, like, what do you see as their instincts for hiding zones or using curses, and when do they want to not do that?
I'm going to make some generalizations because I think in this season, we've seen more of Ben and Sam's strategies so far, and I feel like both of them are kind of static in different ways. And let me explain. I think that Sam, so far, has not necessarily learned from his past rounds, in that he continues to try something new each time, which is something that I really enjoy viewing, don't get me wrong, but so far has not been successful. Like we saw in Japan, he was trying, even in Switzerland, I think, he was trying really new, unique strategies, and none of them this far have paid off. His strategy going into his first run in the UK, he's still trying something new that has not been done in previous seasons, I think.
Yeah.
He's always trying to do what either hasn't worked yet or the opposite of what he's being told to.
Which I almost see as a parallel to Ben, who was super successful in Japan, and I think kind of tried to use the same tactics in this season of kind of a nondescript small town, a bit far away on the train from the starting point, try to play out that middle game because it was super successful in Japan. And then we see that that's not really translating here. And so I think that with both Sam and Ben, they're kind of falling into patterns that have been established in previous hide-and-seek seasons. And I would say that Sam's run in this season was actually probably more successful than most of his other hide-and-seek rounds. I would say the airport strategy was good and ended with a stroke of bad luck, but I think that that was a really risky move. I think this one was a lot less risky, but it still had some of those hallmarks of taking a big swing that is not the same as, I think, Ben and to somewhat of a lesser degree Adam do, of the tried and true method, smallish town, go there, try to play out that middle game, and get a long time.
And to close us all out, I want to go back to the overarching hide-and-seek, which to me is a little bit relevant to our Strat Chat discussion today. I want to talk about, are there any strategies emerging here in this season that we didn't see in previous seasons of hide-and-seek? And to me, what's most striking is the photo questions. They are using those and relying on them as seekers a lot more than they have in previous rounds, and so far it looks like it's worked. But what else do you guys see? Are there major differences in how everybody's playing?
I think one major difference that I'm seeing, at least comparing the UK and Japan, is just the way the physical rail network has a really big impact in how the game is playing out. I'm thinking back to how in Japan there were sort of multiple stages built into the game of saying, well, which Shinkansen do we have to get on? And then what stop are we stopping at? And then how far off the Shinkansen are we going to go? And then there are sort of branching webs of how many changes do I need to make even off of the line, off of the Shinkansen. Whereas it seems like in the UK, it's just a very different structure of rail network. So what we've seen so far is that you're hopping from hub to hub. So pretty much you know where you're starting. And if you can pick a direction, you're going to go to the next hub and eliminate spaces as you go. But then once you get to the next hub, you've sort of made it to a checkpoint, well done, and then you just need to pick a new direction and continue on in that way. Which does feel extremely different, where physical location is sort of correlated to amount of time in the UK in a way that was not the case in Japan. Like, there were lots of conversations in Japan about saying, well, we've eliminated this area, but there's a portion of the map that's still included that if we want to get there, we have to take a different Shinkansen, because if we don't take that Shinkansen, it's going to be like 5 hours to take slow regional trains to get there, even if it's physically close. And so I do think we're seeing far more geography-based eliminating zones. There's a lot of thermometers and a lot of radars that are able to give the seekers super powerful information of telling them pretty much exactly what line to get on, at least for their next step.
Kyra, that's really interesting that the geography is coming more into play here than it did in Japan. And I think that might just be why the photo questions are so much more powerful. Because if you can see they're in the rain, it's not that there's 2 different spots on 2 different Shinkansen lines that have rain. It's that he's gotta be in this mountain area, and he couldn't have gotten to, like, different parts of that mountain area different ways. So if you've eliminated one part of the mountain area, you've probably eliminated, say, the other part of the mountain area. Versus in Japan, you could have eliminated one part of a mountain area, but had the entire other half of the mountain in play because a different high-speed rail line got there, even though they were hard to get between.
Exactly.
I also think something that emerged for me in this season is just the nature of this not being their first ever game of hide and seek. They're definitely very familiar with the game mechanics, and I think they've really optimized a lot of the strategy, which is definitely really interesting to see. But I think here we're really seeing which questions are the most powerful and which questions they're basically going to ask every time. There are certain radars and thermometers that get asked every time, tallest building photo, Strava map. I think these are all very powerful and give a lot of information, and almost makes me curious about what a game would be, or a future season where they can't ask any questions that they've asked in an existing season. Like, there are so many questions in the home game that they never ask, and I would be really curious to see whether the strategies that they have developed over the seasons would still be as effective with some of those unasked questions.
Well, thanks for joining me at cruising altitude. Let's bring this flight back to the ground, and Kyra, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Jaya. In this episode, we saw that a spontaneous downpour completely changed the course of Ben's run, taking him from a position of confidence to being pretty much immediately cooked with no way out. So in today's Train of Lies, I have for you stories of times when unexpected weather has made a big impact.
Yay!
We'll start off with a warm-up round. I'll describe an event, and then I want you to guess what kind of weather caused the event to happen. For the purposes of this question, I'm combining weather with other general natural events. So we'll have our normal rain, snow, hail, wind, heat wave, etc. But I'm also just going to sort of loop in things like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, storms or hurricanes, solar events that have an impact on Earth, stuff like that. So we're being, like, so loose with our definition of weather. Just sort of go with me on this. We're talking about naturally occurring things that could make it so it's not nice and chill outside.
Kyra, I'm obsessed with this.
This is so
rules.
awesome.
Your first warm-up story. In 430 BCE, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote about a war between the Lydians, who lived in regions of modern-day Turkey, and the Medes, who lived in Iran. He explained that after 6 years of fighting, the two opposing sides decided to prioritize peace after experiencing what natural phenomenon?
Okay, so I'm trying to think of weather events that we now, or him then, could have, like, charted that far in the future.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, like, volcanoes, because they have a really big impact, and we know that there are volcanoes around that area. Or just a wild guess that might make something like peace after a 6-year war kind of randomly happen. could be a solar eclipse.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Jaya.
Seeing the solar eclipse, like, changed me fundamentally as a person, and I'm like, that would end a war.
That's literally what I was thinking about, was watching the total eclipse a few years ago. I was like, I believe in the beauty and love of humanity, and I could really see that being, one, maybe something that no one alive had ever experienced, and they thought the world was ending, and two, something that probably could have had deep religious or spiritual significance in a way that, like, I think a volcanic eruption also could, but was maybe more familiar in that time.
Yeah,
so
I think a volcano would stop a war because it killed everyone, not because they decided to broker peace because something crazy happened.
Yeah, so I was also thinking of a solar eclipse.
Kyra, was it a solar eclipse?
Ding, ding, ding! It's a solar eclipse!
Whoa, I've never heard this story before. I'm so proud of myself.
I know, that's awesome.
Next up, when Kublai Khan was the emperor of the Mongol Empire in the 13th century, he aimed to expand his empire as far as possible, reaching most of present-day China, Mongolia, Korea, and southern Siberia, and sending invasions into many other surrounding regions. However, attempts to invade Japan failed due to what weather event?
Oh my god. This feels like something I should know from that YouTube video of the history of Japan. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Bill Worth's History of Japan. I honestly have no idea about this. Did you say there was like a repetitive failure, or just like that they tried once and failed?
It was twice.
Twice? Well, because if it was just once, I was going to say tsunami.
It was twice in 2 separate years.
I almost want to say, because it was multiple instances, I almost want to say it's something more on the mundane level of rain or snow or like a heat wave or something, because, but then, like, why would they not prepare better? If the empire already kind of included what we think of as modern day Siberia or parts of it, then I think I'm going to say heat wave, because I feel like they might be prepared for cold, snow, hail, and a heat wave, they might think, oh, we can't handle this, our people are dying, let's turn around. Surely it won't happen again. I'm going to say heat wave.
I am gonna go with my original instinct, not of tsunami, but of earthquake, because they're more common.
Those are both really good guesses. You were sort of circling the right answer right in the beginning. The answer is actually 2 typhoons with strong winds.
Oh,
so
they do get those there.
Mongol fleets attacked Japan twice. The first time was in 1274, and the second time was in 1281. And both times they were overwhelmed by strong winds and storms. These 2 storms were called kamikaze, which literally translates to divine wind.
Oh my
this
god,
term was later commandeered during World War II as a metaphor, saying that the military pilots themselves would become like the divine wind and sweep the enemy from the sea.
That's wild. I had no idea about the etymology of that.
Okay, so we have one last question in your warm-up round. In the summer of 1816, Mary Shelley went on a trip with her buddies Lord Byron, John Polidori, and her husband Percy Shelley to Geneva, Switzerland. Instead of having an awesome time swimming in the lake and having Victorian-era picnics, though, the weather was terrible, and they had their infamous ghost story competition where Mary Shelley got inspired to write Frankenstein. What was the bad weather caused by?
My guess is like a lightning storm, because I feel like Frankenstein, the story, uses electricity to... I actually haven't read Frankenstein, but I think in Frankenstein they use electricity to jolt the monster to life. So I feel like a direct inspiration would be a thunderstorm.
I love that. The reason I keep guessing volcano is because this is volcano.
What?
Yeah, Jaya's right.
It was the year without the summer.
Do you want to explain it?
Was it Mount Tambora?
It was!
Yes!
That's so impressive!
So Mount Tambora is like an island volcano in Indonesia. It did big eruption, a huge eruption, lot of ash and dust and gases into the atmosphere, global cooling event because of all of the ash in the atmosphere because it blocked out enough sunlight. And so the entire Earth just got colder. So 1816 is called the year without a summer because pretty much nowhere had a summer that year. And so famously, Mary Shelley and all her friends went to go try and have a summer holiday because it was so miserable. And they continued having a miserable summer holiday. And that's when Frankenstein was born.
You are 100% correct.
Yay!
All right, so now we'll actually board our train of lies. I'm going to read you 3 stories of weather-related events, and you'll decide which one is a lie. First, in 1976, the UK was experiencing its driest summer for 200 years. In an effort to try to get the general public to use less water and to mitigate the impacts of their terrible drought, the UK government appointed Dennis Howell as the first ever Minister for Drought. He took this position with enthusiasm, encouraging citizens to do a rain dance on behalf of the nation. Maybe because of his initiative, or maybe in a hilarious act of cosmic timing, only days after he was appointed, the UK experienced heavy rainfall and widespread flooding, causing him to be widely known as the Minister for Rain. Second, nothing could stop a baseball game, right? Well, since the Baseball World Series was founded in 1903, it has only been canceled twice. The first time was in 1904, almost immediately after it was founded, because of disagreements between the owners of the 2 major leagues. But the second time it was canceled was in 1989, when the San Francisco earthquake struck through Candlestick Park during a World Series game between the San Francisco Giants and the Oakland A's. Television coverage was lost, power went out across the stadium, and fans and players alike had to be evacuated, canceling the World Series. And last, the Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race is an annual Australian yacht race event that starts in Sydney on Boxing Day and finishes in Hobart, Tasmania over a week later. This race has seen its fair share of weather inconveniences and even weather disasters, but in my opinion, the craziest one happened in 2001, when a tornado hit the race course. The tornado passed very close to the yacht called Nicorette 2, which was severely damaged, but was able to complete the race using a spare mainsail. So, which of these 3 stories is a lie?
Okay. I'm pretty sure that at least the basis of the 1989 San Francisco earthquake is true. I know that I've seen footage, and I know that it was an A's Giants series, but I don't actually know if the rest of the series was canceled.
That is my sticking point, because I know about the 1989 San Francisco earthquake, but could Kyra be using the fact that we're all from California and know about this earthquake to trick us? And is some part of this false? I also know that Kyra recently went to the California Academy of Sciences, where they have an earthquake exhibit. Could she have learned something there? It's unclear. Let's talk about the Minister for Drought. That kind of sounds like the kind of silliness that the UK would
That feels
pull.
right to me in just vibes alone. That they would hire a guy who would be like, hey guys, do a rain dance, and then there would be flooding immediately.
Well, and it definitely, to me, feels correct in terms of, like, political posturing, where I'm assuming that if this is true, the Minister for Drought would be responsible for, like, very administrative, bureaucratic, like, making sure that enough water gets to different water systems or to the agriculture sector, or, like, dealing with all these things. But the public-facing part would be maybe brought with a bit more humor to avoid panicking the country and the people by the fact that they have appointed a Minister for Drought. So that also kind of feels realistic to me.
I'm thinking about this yacht race, and that's crazy that there was a tornado. And one of the reasons why I think it's crazy is that I'm pretty sure tornadoes over water are a lot rarer than tornadoes over land. You need a big thunderstorm, you need convection, and you need, like, very specific wind patterns to get a tornado, and so that's why they're pretty rare outside of Tornado Alley in the US. But you can have a tornado over water, so, like, that could have totally just been an insane fluke of things that happened. I'm debating Either I think the rest of the World Series wasn't canceled after Loma Prieta, or I think the tornado just didn't happen, and that was funny.
I'm going to guess the San Francisco earthquake because I just feel like Kyra could be bluffing us, but it's very possible she's double bluffing us.
I'm gonna say the yacht race.
Casey is correct. I was, in fact, bluffing.
It didn't cancel the rest of the series?
You clocked it immediately.
Oh.
It actually didn't disrupt the series very much at all. The game was rescheduled to be like a week later, and the Oakland A's won the game and then swept all 4 games in the series. I was sort of struck by how quickly they recovered, considering how devastating the earthquake was.
Yeah, that was
for the whole Bay Area.
Immense earthquake.
Do you guys want to take a guess about what the actual second time the World Series was canceled, what that was about?
9/11.
COVID?
Okay, both of you guys were thinking way too big. It was actually just in 1994 the players went on strike because the owners wanted to put a cap on their salaries.
Good for them.
All right, so you both have actually tied in our weather-related train of lies. Well
Yay.
done. I will pass things back to Casey.
Thanks, Kyra. That was so fun, and I feel very vindicated that I know you well enough to know when you're tricking me. But now we will move into our Rosebud and Thorn. Jaya, do you want to get us started?
Absolutely. My rose is that I was really tickled by the snack zone. The only other time I've come across a Scotch egg was in a Botched by Babish video about Scotch eggs. And so, even though I think in concept it sounds pretty tasty, like a runny yolk egg, sausage deep fried, it shouldn't be that bad. But I've only ever seen them on, like, just an insanely funny struggle train, and I think that is fantastic. My thorn is specifically that they caught Ben after a short end game because he didn't have enough time to lock in a hiding zone. Ben's end games are always just so fun to watch for me, and so I, as a viewer, am sad about that. And my bud is more of a meta one. It's that we, for the last few weeks, have been recording with a 13-and-a-half-hour time difference as we were all traveling. And so my bud is that level of time zone shenanigans where we're recording early morning and late night, or both or neither, is just not going to happen again for a while.
Woohoo!
Oh, a beautiful bud. Kyra, what about you?
My rose is the beautiful castle ruins in the beginning when Ben was first showing his hiding zone. I thought they were really beautiful. My thorn, I mean, we've all gotten our fair share of mourning a bad Sam run, and Casey really puts on a brave face every time it happens. But, like,
You do.
woof, this has been a tough season for Team Ben. Like, it is hard to watch him set up what could have been a pretty good run, or at least, like, a normal run. And then because of something that wasn't totally out of his control, but was pretty much out of his control, it just became totally unrecoverable. I feel unrecovered. And my bud is that we finally are going to get some Scotland content. I don't think this will ultimately have a big impact, but I'm a little bit curious whether there's going to be any confusion as to whether Sam went to Scotland versus Wales, especially if the Seekers start by asking him the same country question. So I'm very excited.
My rose is I actually really enjoyed the novel use of the weather map to look at rain patterns across the UK, and I feel like it played out really well in this episode. I thought that was a really cool strategy. My thorn is I really liked how annoying the Curse of the Impenetrable Fog was in Ben's first round, and I was so bummed that he couldn't cast it again here. And my bud is that I am going to be the most annoying person ever next episode. I'm going to be absolutely insufferable. I am wriggling in glee about Sam hiding in Scotland. This is going to be amazing for me.
I'm so happy for you personally.
Thank you. And with that, thank you for waiting at Baggage Claim. Let us know your thoughts on socials at baggageclaimpod or over email, which is in the episode description. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a comment or give us a follow. We'll see you next week at the What Else But the Scottish Baggage Claim. Oh, sorry. You thought I said baggage claim? I meant bagpipe claim. Goodbye.
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 when one of my friends watched Les Mis, she got halfway through the movie and then said, I'm really sorry, I think I'm missing something. Where's Rob? And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, where's Rob? And they were like, what do you mean? And she was like, the titular Rob, who is lame. Lame is Rob. And they were like, no. Not correct.